これはですね、キラだから。
What is justice? Is it based on objective evidence or subjective judgment? I had not thought much about these questions until I watched Death Note. Death Note isn't completely a battle of intelligent minds. If that were the case, L certainly would have won due to the numbers of strong minds on the good side. There were many times when L almost caught Light if it weren't for the Death Note saving him or Light manipulating a less perceptive Shinigami to sacrifice herself. In the beginning of the Death Note, Light Yagami is a simple high school student with above average intellect. It is not surprising for him to have a small superiority complex building up inside him. He regarded many people as rotten even before getting his hands on Death Note. These are clear signs of the complex. As a result, we see that Light keeps to himself, often being alone during the school. Light, without a doubt, most likely believes his classmates were inferior to him. He is not as judgmental as Kira though, but I will get to him in a little bit. Light's small superiority complex is due to his high achievement and popularity. Light may be antisocial in certain circumstances, but he knows how to attract a crowd. He is seemingly popular within the ladies as well. Looks, grades, and a sense of entitlement are what makes up his personality. Of course, Light is not as manipulative as Kira. Remember that he is not the same as his other half. In Death Note, there are many perspectives of morality given, like L's perspective, Light's perspective, Mello's, Nier's, Masuda's, Sochiro's, Misa's, and so on. This is particularly in reference to death and whether or not is it okay to kill someone if they are evil. The problems throughout the series are summed up to be what or who are the evil and who are the good. This becomes a more of a fascinating issue when we begin to dissect the true purpose for these ideals to have manifested. Initially, Light is a character who despises those who wrong others and live without consequences. Thus, an audience is introduced in the Light as a person governed by a moral code. The audience is aware of this as Light's father, known as Chief Yagami, is the head of the Japanese police task force, the ultimate symbol of justice. The anime also makes it clear that at a young age, Light is exposed to ideas regarding moral behaviors and his parents along with his environmental surroundings shaping his sense of righteousness. These influences from Light's family as well as the environment in which he was nurtured, and it is what forms his initial sense of justice. As noted by Dr. Hyun-ma, a professor at the Department of Education Studies, Dr. Kyun discusses this phenomenon by stating that the characteristic of the stages of moral development includes psychological needs, altruism and human relationships and justice reasonings. However, as the series progresses, Light receives the Death Note and the power to kill changes his perception of justice. The power to kill is what changes Light's mindset as proven psychologically by Dr. Andy Martens, who is a former professor and researcher in socio-psychology and physiology. Martens explains the phenomenon that is noted in a serial killer psychology, which is how killing begets killing, and people who will lose the value of human life. When someone unleashes the power to kill another, psychologically their mind can now justify further killings for whatever reason important to the killer. This is precisely what Light experiences as his sense of justice changes on a psychological level from what he was taught as a child. Light's sense of justice shifts dramatically from the first episode when he states that no one deserves to die unjustly and without reasoning, to rotten people like criminals deserve to die no matter what their crime is. After utilizing the Death Note, Light and his family are very close, but at the same time, not really. Since Light is a studious student, he spends most of his time at home in his room reading and studying. His mother is really there to cook and receive results from him. There isn't much of interaction between them, but like any son should, he cares about her well-being. This is the same as his younger sister Sayu, Light's father Soichiro, who works a tough job. It seems as if both Light and Kira have a soft spot for their father, since he has a sense of justice just as they both have. Yet it was not enough for Kira, who realized Soichiro's sense of justice was not enough to cleanse the world. Light's relationships with others aren't really shown in depth. Before the Death Note, Light most likely had a good connection with others, but with a small superiority complex, he felt uninterested to talk to them most of the time. One of the Light's traits was being shy, so this as well could have been a factor for Light's withdrawal from the others. Now Ryuk, the Shinigami who dropped the Death Note in the human world, asks if it is the right thing to do. Light replies that people will on the surface say that it's not the right thing to do, but deep down they want all criminals to be executed. Murderers get away with little to no punishment using money and political influences. Several cases have become stuck on the court. Smugglers are caught only when the settings with police does not work. Honest people are scared of the crooks because they control everything from economy to government. And the media, criminals wave at the camera without any fear. Living in such circumstances, would I have done what Light does? If I say no, I'm not being honest. But Ryuk lays out an interesting point when he says, even if you get rid of all the criminals, there will still remain one, you. Realizing the corruption absolute power can cause, I might have stopped at this, but Light does not care about him. He sacrificed his soul for the greater good and his godhood, and assumed the role of Kira, which is killer. Importantly, he does not believe that he is evil, but he believes that he is justice incarnate. When his killings becomes noticed by crime fighters, and by crime fighters I mean cops and detectives, he tricks one of the American investigators into killing his own team and then kills him. He uses all of his attributes I listed earlier: good looks, popularity, and father's job status to manipulate others to do his biddings and then kill them. It's not just about the humans, but he even does this to a Shinigami, a death god or a keeper of the Death Note. But even then, I was impressed how he executed all of his elaborate plans and manipulations to get him out of trouble. Do you remember that scene when he's trying to kill another PI and he finally succeeds in writing down her name, and she asks him why he keeps checking his watch, and he says, "Because I'm Kira." That scene gives me chills every time. But when Light's father died, that's when my awe-inspiring respect for Light died. Still, I was sad when Light died, when he's laughed maniacally, insulting Matsuda, begging for help and staring at the ceiling as he dies makes you realize how far this character has fallen. If he did not pick up that notebook, or at least stopped using it after first couple of uses, he could have used his intelligent, charm and family resources to find more peaceful, or at least more sane and practical world and ways to change or better the world. Always crossing the borders between reasons and insanity, truth and controversy, Light will always be the most loved and the hated anime characters of anime history. Every day on the internet, people with opposing views are treated like they have committed some crimes, always arguing, bashing, trolling and bullying behind the safety of their screens. These trolls who pass judgments solely based on their emotional situation can use the internet to shut up people, to ruin their careers and to force others into depression and suicide. How are these different from Light Yagami then? But then there are also problems with the judicial system as well. Some cases are never registered, some criminals get away using money and political power, and sometimes innocents are falsely convicted. When criminals get away from doing these things, my blood boils. I want to kill them, all of those people, in an instant. In those situations, I find myself supporting Kira and what he has done so far. In other cases though, Death Note does not improve a thing. What if Light has killed many falsely convicted peoples and has never killed some criminals because they never surfaced? People change, and that include people who have been previously convicted with a certain crime. They realize the mistake they made, they improve themselves and those around us. Have you watched Shawshank Redemption? Why do you cheer up for Andy when he escapes from the prison? It's because we know he wanted to change himself and the prison didn't allow that to happen. And he was falsely convicted and still the jail did not want to release him. Someone like L would have eliminated Andy before justice was served. Still, the concept of justice is subjective. Some countries have provisions for sentencing murderers to death while some don't. I won't be hanged for killing someone in Nepal, but will definitely be sentenced to death in Saudi Arabia. The legal provisions in these countries have been set up on the basis of arguments that feels right to the rulers or mass in general. I must comply with the definition of justice according to the society and the nation, no matter how arbitrary it may sound. Morality, law, justice, and so on are the concepts that have been set up in the society for the sake of progression of human civilization. They have bound us together, inspiring for godness and sometimes evoking fear. The definition of justice is skewed towards what we want and what the society or nation wants for the greater good. Eye for an eye model of justice, which was suitable for the ancient civilization, is not good model today. Religious models based on God judgment are not always fair too. and rules of laws is not same for everywhere, but I believe that's the best we have until we find another model of justice that benefits civilization, or either we find a real life Kira. And I think that's for today's video, guys. That was the video about the character analysis of Kira or Light Yagami and the justice from the perspective of Kira. What are your thoughts about this video? Let me know about your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I post daily anime content about top 10 top 5 listings, anime reviews, recommendations, news, theories and all sorts of anime content on daily basis. So if you enjoyed, please subscribe, and that was it, and I will see you in the next one. Sayonara.